For those of you in your 50s, have you ever caught yourself comparing your life to your high school self? For many of you, that could be hanging on to an identity that no longer fits what you've become. And in this video, I'm going to share with you how to let go of that comparison and embrace your life today without judgment. Hi, I'm Raz. I am the semi-retired samurai, and on this channel I talk about reinvention and living authentically in your 50s. And today I want to talk about thinking back to your high school version of yourself, who you thought you'd become, and what expectations did you have of yourself. Now, I think a lot of us get in this comparison trap as we leave high school, enter our careers. We compare our career, how far we've climbed the corporate ladder, how much money we have compared to our friends, family members, the lifestyle we live, and also we compare our success to others, especially more so as we get older. And I think a lot of us have this, I guess, internal battle and fight with our internal dialogue on, I think it's all of us say that, are we a lot further ahead than we thought? And it's quite interesting because I always hear of extremely wealthy people that you know, someone that has maybe 10 to 15 million, and they still feel poor because they're comparing themselves to people who are much richer than them. I thought, you know, you think about it, it's quite crazy, right? And we also think about, you know, the life that we had planned since we were kids, you know, in our heads anyway, and then maybe it didn't turn out the way that we had wanted it to. And I think this hits our generation, the Gen X generation, really, really hard, because when we grew up in the 80s, we were taught about stability, career success, climb that corporate ladder, get that, work hard, buy that house, have a great family, and get that great pension and retire happily at 65. But for many of us, as we know now, it didn't happen quite that way, especially with now the high cost of living and all these things, right? So I think there's a big identity gap comparing who you imagined yourself to be when you were younger and compared to how life has shaped you, what path life has taken you on. And I think with that if there's a big wide gap, it creates a lot of tension. You know, I know from growing up, from my experience, you know, my expectations from my parents, I think every parent, was they want you to be successful, right? And my parents wanted me to make lots of money. They wanted me to become a professional, like a lawyer, doctor, so that they could brag to their friends that, you know, they have a son that became a professional. Well, I didn't become any of those. So, you know, so am I a failure? Well, no, I don't think so, but I could have been, right? And you know, when I finished university, I entered a corporate job, and there was 10 years I spent in that field, in accounting and finance, and I absolutely hated it. And luckily for me, I was able to put my foot down and say, I'm no longer going to live the life that my parents expected me to live, and I'm going to defy everything. And it takes a lot, because I think that creates a lot of tension, because at the time in my 20s I was struggling financially as well. I wasn't where I wanted to be, and my friends and everyone seemed to have moved on with their jobs and life. And here I was struggling to find myself, to find my identity, yeah, it was really tough. And I thought to myself, am I destined to be, you know, in this situation where I'm struggling, and I'm going to look back upon my life as a failure? And I realized that, okay, well, you know what? Maybe the fit that was is not right for me, and I had to find my own path. And if I was going to do it, I was going to do it in my 30s and finally say, enough of the corporate world and go off on my own. And that's what I did. I took a chance. I took a chance to start my own business, and I said I wanted to go with what my heart told me to follow, and that's become a martial artist, a professional martial artist. And many years later, that's what I've become, and I have no regrets now. For me, I'm very lucky, very fortunate that I'm able to do this career, and and I think looking back at my high school, I think a lot of it is what you thought you would become is quite misleading, because in high school we didn't have any responsibilities. There was no real world context, and I was just kind of dreaming, and my parents would kind of build this ideal for me by just saying that this is the route that you're going to go, university, and this is the way it's going to unfold. But I don't think, if I had to go back, if I had to do with my kids, I would tell them what the trade-offs are, because there's many things that can hit you in life after you finish school. So maybe it could be, a divorce, which many people face. Maybe you started a business that failed the first time and it set you back, or you had some major setback. But I don't think they realize, as kids, we don't realize at the time that there's many sacrifices, right? And obviously, the reality of life wasn't explained to us in deep detail until we get there, and then we're forced to navigate through adult life trying to find our way. So for example, for me, in my 20s, it was just survival, just trying to keep my head above water, right? And so I think looking back at it now, at the time I felt like a failure, but now I look at it as not really a failure, but I think I just took a different path than everybody else, and that's okay. I think if I had to go back, I wish I would have put my foot down and pursued my dreams sooner than later, but that's okay. It is what it is, and I have no complaints about life now. So I think you have to stop asking, did I become who I planned to become, and start asking, did I become the person I am proud of? And look at the positive wins, no matter how big or small. And it could be raising great kids and family. I get a lot of comments on my YouTube channel from people who are just so proud of the family that they raised, right? It could be just be healthy. It could be having the opportunity to travel the world and stuff like that. Maybe that's your gig, right? I don't know. But I think everyone has a different level of what they term as success, right? And it doesn't always revolve around, how big your bank account is. And I think it's good to let go of that version of your high school self, because I think it served a purpose at one point. It allowed us to dream, right? But I think if you're still hanging on to that, it's quite outdated now. And I think hanging on to that part really causes a lot more tension. It doesn't allow you to enjoy the present moment. So I think on early 50s is a great opportunity, and I've said this again, and that is to reinvent the life that you always wanted. And it's never too late. I know a lot of people that comment, some of you are down in the dumps, but think about that, because we still have a lot of life to live still, even though we know that we're in the second part of it. But there's many things you do. I mean, when I started my business, it took me a year to become profitable, and that was my start. But if I listened to everybody back then telling me that, hey, you're making a big mistake, to leave a corporate job, to leave your pension, all these things, I don't know where I'd be today. And I think I would be quite miserable. I think I'd just be riding out the corporate job and getting ready for retirement. But I don't think I'd be happy. I'd be very unfulfilled and be left wondering, like, what if, right? And I think that's one of the messages I would love to impart on all of you. So I want to ask you a question, and that is, do you still compare your life to what you imagined back then? Feel free to comment below, and if you like my video, please feel free to like, share, or subscribe, and check out my next one. Okay? I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.